I wanted to play a game with you. So if you are down, Chris, a lot of people I'm sure can see in the background here that are watching the video version, you are quite the book connoisseur, and you have quite a lot of wrestling titles in there. So what I wanted to do was throw a few titles your way. And number one, if you have read the book, and B, a quick one-line review of said book, if it is in your collection. So
Put me on the spot, John. Let's go.
Okay, we're going to start off with one that I recently read, and I know you own this one. This is the Saturday Afternoon War by Tony Earnshaw on the history of a world of sport. Is this one a quick thought?
I'm just so it's I didn't even grow up with that era, but I kind of like wrestling grew up on discovering Johnny Saint and all of those guys. So it's very nostalgic for me. And there's so little information about them out there. So that John Lister's book, I love. It's just really cool to be able to dip in there. And I don't know, you just look stuff up that's not even on the internet, right? So a lot of these stories don't even exist. If you go to like Wrestling Furnace or whatever, one of those old sites, you can find things. But like, I just, I have not read the entire book. You know, a lot of these books, shoot, you know, some of them I haven't even cracked open, you know, a handful of them I've started and then haven't gotten through. And then there's a bunch of them that I've read, but I like having them to like, whenever I need to know something or get something, or I need to dive into something, it's like
they're accessible.
Right. So I'm very glad. And I wish more books focusing on the British era of wrestling, that British era of wrestling existed.
How about this one? This one is an oldie, but many people's first, maybe. Pure Dynamite here by Tom Billington. This came out in 1999. A brutally honest account from the late Tom Billington.
Yeah, I borrowed that book in the year 2000 from my. He would go on to be my roommate, Mark Wolf, and it's crazy. You know, I'd been wrestling 2 years at that time. But my knowledge of Dynamite Kid was very little. I knew the British Bulldogs, and I knew that people said Dynamite Kid was good. But reading that book, and it's a very cynical take on wrestling. It's very honest, too.
Yep.
It's just, you know, I think Mick's book came out first. They're both right around the same time.
They're right about the same time.
And like those two books were like must read for fans of pro wrestling, and then also people in the industry. And it's important to I think Dynamite's book was like the prototype for Brett's book, because Brett was very honest and very in-depth and detailed, and it's like you could see, you know, even though they clashed and butted heads on some things, but you could see like, oh, there's where some of that blunt honesty comes from. And I that book is great. You know, regardless of what you think of Dynamite as a human or the things that he did in his lifetime. But I definitely would recommend that book.
This is a rare one. I don't know. This one might not even be in Chris Hero's collection. If it is, I'll be impressed. This was sent to me actually by a listener. This is Stranglehold by the former voice of the AWA, Larry Nelson. This book, my review, insane. That's my review. Okay, that's my one review.
Okay, so I do own the book.
Oh wow!
I have not read it. I believe I forget where it came from. Somebody gifted it to me. When you have the reputation of being a wrestling nerd like I do, you know, I'll just have people that like read books and they finish them and go, "Hey, here you go, have this one." So, you know, there's a good portion of books on that shelf that were gifted to me from people. Larry Nelson. The thing I remember of him is the Derek Dukes, Colonel De Beers angle.
Oh yes.
And he's like, you know, he wants Colonel De Beers wants to paint Derek Dukes white, and then like Derek Dukes is like, I'm gonna get him, I'm gonna paint him white, and Larry Nelson is like, oh god, like he's so satisfied by this threat. It's a great YouTube video if you check out Larry Nelson, Derek Dukes. That's awesome.
If you can get your hands on this book, it's a wild read from Larry Nelson. I'll do two more here. Okay, now this one, George Hackenschmidt, The Way to Live. Have you ever seen this one?
I do not have that book. No.
Yeah, this is one that a friend of mine actually saw and thought of me. So I have not read it myself, but I was going to throw that out. And the final one here. Okay, we're going to go off kilter here. Showtime by Jeff Pearlman. This was the book that inspired Winning Time, the late great Winning Time, which was my favorite show on television that got canceled.
Oh my gosh, pour one out for that series. I haven't even finished season 2 because
Oh,
I'm just so
dude, it's such a
dejected by the
depressing end.
news.
Like, it's
Oh,
like the series can't end on this note. That's all I'll say. It's
yeah, what a great bombastic series. I'm really hoping that there's a groundswell to kind of get that picked up somewhere and done. But it's you got to finish the story. You got to finish the story. Man, here, let me contribute a moment to this game. Give me one moment.
Oh, let's do it. Let's do it. We're going to now. If you see in the background here, this is quite the impressive shelf that I have seen some close-up photos of in the past, and this inspired such a game here to go into our collective wrestling book collections and see what Chris is going to be pulling out here. Now, if you're just listening on audio, we are 3 stacks deep here into Chris Hero's personal collection of wrestling books, and I'm wondering how far, how obscure he is going to go. All right, he has grabbed a few titles, and he is now returning. And let's see what is in the very prestigious Chris Hero collection of books.
Okay, maybe you put some Jeopardy music on.
Oh no, I did commentary of you
Did
going
commentary.
and staking out the picks.
Okay, so these are just 3 books that I love for different
Okay.
reasons. The first one is this just incredible 85 years of Lucha Libre.
Oh wow, this I do not have. I have
It is a very thick book, and it's just so many great photos and just there's some paintings throughout. I will say that I have not read this book. I've read bits of it. It's obviously in Spanish, but just an exceptional history of Lucha Libre CMLL.
we talk about historical UK books. I mean, Lucha books, especially in English. I mean, you would just love to. It's a very undercovered area, like massive area of professional wrestling.
And it's a bit promising that some of these older luchadors are doing long form interviews now,
right,
where they'll talk about stuff. I'll see either Lucha Blog or Rob Viper kind of talk about it. And it's like, these wrestlers that weren't the stars, but they worked with all the stars. So it's really interesting to get their takes. And I hope that someone is out there cataloging all of this so we can, have a frame of reference. Right.
That and translating all the Japanese books. When I was over in Japan and just seeing all these books, and I was like, oh my goodness, the cottage industry that could be translations of
yes,
books.
And that's a conversation I've had many times. One of my very good friends, his name is Eugene Nagasawa. He is a professor on philosophy of religion. Okay. And he most recently worked at the University of Birmingham in England, and he's actually moving to Oklahoma at the end of this year, beginning of next year, to start a residency there. But he's a published author. He's like, I don't know, he's just super, super fancy, but he happens to be a pro wrestling fan. So we connected through that. He used to do my Japanese blog for me. When I was over for Wembley, myself, Eugene, and Tony Schiavone were able to sit and talk for a couple hours. It was a nice kind of, crash of 2 different worlds for me. But Eugene would I'm a massive Kawada fan. So he would read the Kawada book. And if there were certain parts that were interesting, he'd be like, hey, he tells the story, he did this and whatever. So I have these emails and messages with just, these different stories in there. And whenever there's something, I've got a number of different resources when I'm trying to get some details on something. But he's a person that I really go to a lot to just kind of, because it's so...
These people are gold mines when it comes to...
It's so fascinating, all of these things, all those different books. Another one of my favorite books is a very hard one to come across. Hey, boy, where'd you get them ears?
Yeah, I have heard of this book. I have not read this book, though, but
I've got a photo of the man, Paul Bosch himself.
Wow, look at
right
this.
Inside. It's just a great book. It's from a different time. There's obviously a lot to glean from it. Mm-hmm. But man, just he was so instrumental in wrestling, and not just him, but the people that he influenced, and all the people that became bookers that worked with him. It's just an incredible resource, and one that I absolutely love. And this is a different kind of book. This is more of like a tutorial kind of book. This is Gene LaBelle's Grappling World, the Encyclopedia of Finishing Holds.
A classic here.
And it is, look how massive.
Look at this thing.
This is the 3rd edition, with over 950 finishing holds. And just Gene, aside from knowing his shit, he's just a funny guy. He's just very pokes fun at himself. There's a lot of technique photos, but there's also illustrations, and he talks about biting people and grabbing their hair, and it's just what a funny guy. And this is one that is good to pop in a wrestling ring sometime and try out a couple of these holds. It's just a gold mine.
Maybe we'll see some of those techniques on Friday night.
Yeah, I should bring it with me.
There you have it. You'll know the source if you see any of these.